As China commemorates the end of the war 80 years ago, we've been speaking to the former UK government minister Vince Cable about the legacy of the conflict and China's often overlooked role.
Our correspondent Li Jianhua asked him whether that shared history still carries any weight in a world shaken by tariffs and new conflicts.
As far as tariffs are concerned, the main casualty of Trump's tariff war is going to be the United States. And there is a lot, I'm an economist, there's a long history of the use of protectionism and trade, and it's mainly damaging to the country that does it. And the Americans know this from their experience in the 20s and 30s. So I think people have to be a little bit level-headed about the tariff war, not treat it as a tit-for-tat, recognizing that what the United States is doing is rather foolish and self-harming. Obviously countries have got to stick up for themselves, and China's the one country so far that hasn't been willing to be bullied, and I don't think rightly, but recognizing that the main damage is with the United States. As far as our lessons from the past are concerned, what happened in Asia, I think, unfortunately, has been rather forgotten in Europe, but the war in East Asia, particularly Japan's invasion of China and its aftermath, was actually a major factor in the outcome, because the war with China by Japan caused an enormous amount of casualties and horrific experience in China. But the fact that the Chinese kept fighting, whereas the empires of France, Holland and Britain gave up, the fact that they kept fighting tied down the Japanese forces and made it possible for the West, particularly the US, eventually to win. And I think China's contribution in the war is something we probably don't understand enough, appreciate enough, and should revisit it.
And why do you think China's role during the Second World War was underrepresented somehow?
Well, I think more neglect. And of course, the war was followed by a civil war, and people have perhaps focused more on the nationalists and the Communist Party struggle. But it was a major part of our history. And actually, the war and its aftermath was one of the factors which led to the end of the British, the French and the Dutch empires, which is a major step forward historically, and that was one of the factors which has led to Asia emerging now as probably the centre of gravity of the world economy, with the rapid development that's happened not just in China, but Vietnam, Indonesia, and now in India.
Let's talk about China and the UK as we mark 80 years since the end of the Second World War. Do you believe that shared history, like both the UK and China fighting fascism back in the days, will hold any weight today?
It should do. It didn't resonate quite as emotionally as victory in Europe, but it was important, and I think we should go back to it. And when our governments negotiate, remember that we had this common history, and actually we're fighting on the same side. And it's also, I think, a reminder that if war does break out, there are truly horrific consequences. I mean, there were tens of millions who died in the war in Asia. Of course, then it finished with the use of atomic weapons, which mustn't happen again. And so it's a reminder of the work we have to do to create stable political relationships and not let conflicts get out of control.